Herron in Focus Newsroom Africa Channel 405. Conversations continue. The City of Cape Town's Mayco member for Safety and Security, J.P. Smith, has described the Metro Safety and Security Investigation Unit as a unit that operates fully within the law and is empowered by the Criminal Procedure Amendment Act, I beg your pardon. In an opinion piece, Smith says while policing collapses nationally, the city will grow its own policing resources and assert our powers because this is the only way to better protect residents. The Secretary General of the Good Party, Herron, has however called for a probe into the legality of the unit, calling it a rogue and dangerous arrogation of unlawful policing, security and intelligence powers by the City of Cape Town. Here to unpack this further, I'm joined now by the City of Cape Town's J.P. Smith, as well as Good Party Secretary General Herron. Gentlemen, good evening and thank you very much for your time, both of you joining us on the line. J.P., let me start with you first. How was this unit put together? What processes in law were followed to set it up?
This unit actually has quite a long run-up and evening. This unit, I think, started back in the 90s. It originally had quite a modest function, looking at mainly theft and loss from our electricity department and otherwise, and over time expanded and grew in its range of function. It is predominantly, over the years, tasked with internal investigations, so it deals with complaints around corruption or misconduct, serious misconduct by staff members. And as time went on, has gradually expanded its function. So, for instance, as the provincial government started doing more watching briefs over criminal matters, high-profile criminal matters, so we started doing watching briefs over the firearm and drug arrests that our staff are involved in to see what happens to those cases afterwards, because we discover that an unhealthily large amount of those cases can be withdrawn without good reason. And we then write to the Director of Public Prosecutions, ask for the reinstatement of the case, offering reasons why that should be so. The unit also deals with supporting the specialized units who have to deal with putting together dockets or statements in cases where we deal with complex firearm matters or repeat offenders in relation to metal theft. Much of that behavior or conduct or criminal activity is syndicated, so it helps to have a competent hand guiding the staff's operational activities.
Yeah.
And then we do collect the information. Every day we are producing information in relation to the fines we write, the observations the staff make. And if you are not collating and digesting and analyzing that information, basic business intelligence or business information, as any company does with the data available to it, you are not going to render a smart and intelligent service.
Okay. Who does the unit report to, though, JP?
So it has a head, Mr. Ngele, who is the head of the unit. He's a long-standing official within the safety and policing space. I think he has about 25, 30 years worth of experience. And that, in turn, reports to the Director of Policing and Enforcement Services in the city. In return, that reports to the Executive Director, Safety and Security, as does Metro Police, Traffic, Law Enforcement, and Fire and Emergency Rescue Services, and so forth. Once per quarter, they do a quarterly report to the Safety and Security Portfolio Committee. Once a month, they do a report to the Civilian Oversight Committee, which is 10 civilian members of civil society appointed to do oversight. And at no point do they actually report to me as a political head or the mayoral committee member. So that is a misconception that I think has been purposely or maliciously created. That is simply not true. And the idea that they gather intelligence is also just patently false and is a purposeful bit of misinformation.
Yeah. Is there constitutional provision for such a unit to exist?
Yes, various agencies in national government, including SASSA and others, have similar investigative functions. It's impossible for any police officer in the daily course of your conduct to work without doing investigations inadvertently and inevitably. So the very conduct of a police officer, if you go to a dumping case and you look at the dumping and you open a packet, it is for the purpose of seeing if one of the pieces of paper there is an envelope with the address or name of the person whose dumping it is, so that you can see. that is investigating a dumping case. Much of daily traffic, Metro Police and law enforcement, by-law enforcement work involves various degrees of investigation. But for that matter, so does the conduct of many attorney firms. The city had a series of high-level investigations into misconduct by senior office bearers in the city a few years ago, done by Bauman Gilfillan. That's in a private attorney's firm, a law firm that did those investigations. Investigations are conducted by private investigators, law firms, auditors firms, and stuff. So investigation is not an exclusive competency of SAPS, but there are aspects of investigation that is exclusively theirs, and those are not aspects that we concern ourselves with. We don't gather digital or intercept electronic communications or take fingerprints or those kind of things.
Yeah.
Those are things for which you need a warrant and which the city does not concern itself with.
Yeah.
We have more than ample work within the domain we can work with. For instance, figuring out who the metal thieves are and who they sell to, so that we can try and break that supply chain and save our city the hundreds of millions of rands of metal theft that is constantly caused.
So I mean, if I understand you clearly, you correct me here. You're saying, in essence, this unit is a private investigation company, similar to your forensic investigators that belong to law firms. That's essentially what you're saying this unit does.
They do. So that, I mean, the investigations they conduct are outward-facing on occasion. Remember, when we have an officer who makes a firearm arrest, that investigating, one of our investigators, and other cities, I will just, by the way, have similar investigative resources. They give them different names, and perhaps our great sin was giving a name that was provocative, but we don't apologize for that. We don't think that we have to do less than the public need us to do. We are doing everything that we legally can to improve the safety situation. We don't apologize for that, even if it makes some people uncomfortable. And we're comfortable that we're functioning within the law. But when an investigating officer follows up with or one of our investigators from our Safety and Security Investigations Unit follows up with an investigating officer about the status of a firearm arrest to determine if that investigation is proceeding, or whether the fact that that investigating officer has 220 or 280 case dockets before him has dropped that case and the case is being needlessly withdrawn, that is an outward-facing investigation. It deals with a public criminal matter, but we have a direct stake in it, and we believe that we're duty-bound and obligated in the service of the public safety interest to follow that up, and we would do less than we can. So over time, we've definitely moved into spaces that is not traditionally local government competency, but we've obtained legal advice throughout, and we make sure that we stay on the right side of the law. But at the same time, you also have to push the envelope, because it is a matter of common consent that the National Police Service is severely under-resourced, has severe capacity constraints in many areas, and that crime figures reflect the fact that policing as a national competency has severely deteriorated over the last decades. So the city has increasingly had to step up. That's also what leads to an intervention like the LEAP Law Enforcement Advancement Project with almost 1,100 extra officers and hotspots to try and drive down those murders, try and improve the safety of public in those communities. All right.
Appreciate it. Let's bring in Brett now. Brett, why is the tension around this unit? I mean, you've yourself admitted that the use of the politically loaded term rogue unit is unfortunate, but you're saying there is no other way but to describe this unit as a rogue unit.
Well, I mean, I've just heard the biggest lot of rubbish. It is a rogue unit because it's not constituted in terms of the law. There's a cascading of law. You start with the Constitution, and the Constitution, Section 205, provides for a police service, and Section 205 provides for the police service to be structured in a way that there's provincial and local government functions. And Section 205 of the Constitution says that national legislation needs to be promulgated that will enable these functions. So then you go down to the Police Act, which gives municipalities power to establish municipal police services and gives them their functions, which is bylaw enforcement, traffic enforcement, and crime prevention. And so when a unit that is doing criminal investigation and gathering intelligence is sponsored by the state, in this case the city of Cape Town, but is not formed within the under the Police Act, does not consider itself a municipal police service, then it's a rogue unit, because there's only one law that empowers a municipality to have a municipal police service and to have the units that fall under it, and that is the Police Act. And the City of Cape Town and the provincial government have both confirmed to me in answer to my questions in Parliament that the SSIU is not a municipal police service and therefore does not fall under the oversight of the Provincial Commissioner or the MEC for Community Safety. So it's a unit that is conducting criminal investigations and gathering intelligence, and is unaccountable. So it is rogue, and I think it's a third force operating amongst us in Cape Town and endangering lives. So what I've heard is nonsense. The Criminal Procedure Act doesn't enable it. The Criminal Procedure Act says that when someone is a peace officer, these are the powers you have. In order to be a peace officer, as a municipal employee, you need to be part of a municipal police service. So if you're not part of a municipal police service, you cannot be a peace officer. Therefore, the Criminal Procedure Act cannot give you any investigating powers. Now, the city's own LEAP document, says that this unit will be gathering intelligence. We know that the National Intelligence Act says that there's only three ways that intelligence is conducted. One, when it comes to criminal intelligence, that must be conducted by the South African Police Services and should be conducted by the Hawks. So a specialized unit within the police services. But the City of Cape Town is gathering intelligence, and they're profiling well-known players in organized crime. And you have to ask why. Why are they doing this? Because the head of this unit is not Mr. Ngele. Mr. Ngele is actually the director of community and stakeholder or something. The head of the unit, the de facto head of the unit, and until I pointed a finger at this, the person who's named in every single city document is a Mr. Talmakis. Reynald Talmakis is the head of this unit, and he is being prosecuted in Witbank for tampering with dockets. Now, if you have an organized crime problem and you have a head of a police unit that is being prosecuted for tampering with crime dockets, then you understand the link between organized crime and rogue police units.
All right, let's take a break. We'll come back, get JP to respond to those issues that Brett is raising there tonight on this unit. City of Cape Town Mayoral Committee member for Safety and Security, JP Smith, and Good Party Secretary General Brett Herron. Welcome back. We're in conversation tonight with the City of Cape Town's Mayoral Committee member for Safety and Security, JP Smith, and Good Party Secretary General Brett Herron, who's raised issues around the SSIU. It's a unit that's doing investigations in the City of Cape Town. Investigative methods that they are using to verify facts and so forth have come under the spotlight and are being questioned, and what empowers this unit to exist. So, JP, let's look at those issues then, three in particular. The first one is that this unit is not a municipal police service. There is no attachment to the municipal police service. Two, it is not protected, or it is not born out of the Criminal Procedure Act. And then three, that it gathers intelligence.
So I think that, it's painful debating Mr. Herron, and I've had to do this before, unfortunately, because he is not a subject matter expert, and so I suppose I need to forgive his lack of insight in this matter. But it's very hard to debate a person who utters completely factually inaccurate information, such as suggesting that you cannot be a peace officer if you're not a member of a municipal police force. It's patently factually incorrect. Then forget about investigating the so-called SSIU. Investigate the entire South Africa, because across this entire country are hundreds of municipalities with no municipal police service, who will never have a municipal police service, they will never have a municipal police, but who have law enforcement, or some places they call public safety officers, who are municipal police officers established in terms of the Criminal Procedures Act, who wield the powers as expanded or augmented by the minister in 2018. Through a big effort under the auspices of the Institute for Municipal Public Safety, advocated and achieved the expansion of those powers in consultation with national government, the national minister, and the portfolio committee, and others. So there is an important bit of misinformation that it is important to understand, but there are municipal police officers. We understand very carefully what their rights are. As for not being accountable to Mr. Herron, well, that doesn't say an awful lot. Mr. Herron doesn't hold any position in which anybody should be accountable to him at the head of the MEC for Community Safety or in a similar role. So there is distinct accountability to the Portfolio Committee. He has a councillor in his party who serves on that Portfolio Committee and who is the beneficiary of that account, who sees these reports, as well as I described, the various senior officials, the council as a whole, the Portfolio Committee, the Civilian Oversight Committee, and so forth. The fact that across the entire country, these officers, unlike Metro Police, are not directly under IPID is a shortcoming of the lawmakers in the National Assembly, of which Mr. Herron is a member. And that assembly has known for more than a decade that this is a problem. We have bemoaned the problem frequently and said it is imperative that they amend the legislation to ensure that all policing officers, including municipal police officers, fall under the auspices of IPID. We have said this face-to-face with Minister Cele and his predecessors, and we maintain that point. Nothing but their own effort prevents this legislation from being amended. We are happily subject to IPID. We work very closely on IPID investigations involving any of our staff, and we're happy for all of our police officers to be similar subjects. As for the issue of intelligence, I'm really keen that the minister lay formal charges so that we can put this constant saber rattling to bed. I think this has been going on for about 4 years now with these constant false allegations. I'm very keen for the minister to make formal charges so that we can put this matter to rest once and for all, because to constantly be accused without any consequences happening is somewhat difficult. Mr. Herron hangs himself up on semantics when he talks about we gather intelligence. You can use the word intelligence in many ways. We use it in the form of business intelligence. When you have any kind of business or any kind of operational activity, your staff are gathering information. They are becoming aware that at number 37 Poole Street in this neighborhood, there is constant suspicious activity. They are reporting to a supervisor that today we observed something suspicious at this property. If that supervisor simply ignores that and tomorrow staff go out and they do all the normal work they would do, and a member of the public turns to them and says that, yesterday, didn't we point out to you that property is suspicious or difficult? And you say, no, well, that would constitute gathering intelligence. The public are going to think you're mad. So, of course, we gather information, and if you want to call that intelligence, please do, because for them, absolutely, the gathering of such information and managing it cannot ever put an exclusive competency of an agency that has no bearing on our day-to-day direct work.
But do you profile
that property is a problem property?
Do you profile individuals, for example, in the underworld, gang leaders, and so on and so forth?
You don't have to, because all that detail sits in the public domain. Journalists are doing that every day, all day. So you don't have to sit and profile them. We don't have to have any information at our disposal which is not already in the public domain.
So his profile, if you cut out all the newspaper paper articles, gather all the information that is mentioned in court proceedings, and be aware of that in relation to those individuals in organized crime syndicates' daily impact. Absolutely. We have to be aware of a certain senior crime figure and the impact he is having in Long Street, in Cape Town, by charging extortion money to nightclubs who report to us we are having serious problems. This is threatening our business. It's threatening our safety. And our answer is, we don't know who that person is, because to know who he is would constitute gathering intelligence. I'm afraid it's an absolutely foolish argument. Of course, we have to say, yes, we understand what he's doing, and we understand what he's busy with and who he is and who he's associated with. All that information sits abundantly in the public domain. If gathering and synthesizing that information to brief your Metro Police gang and drug task team with, then I'm afraid we will have to amply confess, surely we gather intelligence. That's what you deem to be intelligence.
All right, and final one is the question of who's heading this unit. The name Tau Makis, does he have anything to do with the unit?
He does. He's currently not active in the unit because of the criminal matter that has been made against him. The criminal matter precedes his employment with the unit by several years. It involves alleged tampering of statistics in a report, and the city is awaiting the outcome of that allegation, as yet untested allegation, before we are able to take further action. But in the meantime, he's not actively involved in the unit. The staff member is not the head of the service, and we've explained it over and over. He is active in one component of the service, and he actually has quite a decorated history of detective work within the South African police. The SAPs used him to investigate extremely high-profile cases, and it is a feather in the cap of the city that he isn't our employee. The fact is that an allegation of misconduct or criminal activity has been made against him. We await to see what the outcome of that is. Mr. Herron's party has several people against who allegations of criminal conduct has been made. Invalidate that person's right to labor law and otherwise. So we have to respect his rights as well. He's not involved in any investigations at the moment, but one official doesn't make a service. At any given time, several hundred officials and SAPs are currently accused of misconduct. That doesn't eradicate the good work that SAPs does or invalidate the efforts of an entire service. That kind of generalization is laughable. And by equal measure, there are persons in Mr. Herron's party who've done very bad things and who have suffered the consequences as a result of that. Doesn't invalidate, in his estimation, certainly the value of his organization. So we have to accept that the unit is doing good work. It's demonstrably doing good work. We can point to that good work in the statistics they generate. And Mr. Tomakis is not the head of the unit. I mentioned the gentleman who is, Mr. Ngele, and no matter how many times Mr. Herron tends to misrepresent that cannot change the fact. In the portfolio committee, when there is report on the unit, it is Mr. Ngele who sits there and does the report, as was the case at the last portfolio committee, where the representatives of the good party was present and saw for herself